Welcome to Hearts and Stripes, your one-stop shop for all things military marriage. I hope our discussions and interviews equip you with the tools to start or grow a beautiful marriage as we address the benefits and challenges of marriage. I believe life's most precious moments are worth celebrating, so I'll help you design your marriage blueprint in alignment with your core values. Thank you for joining us, and remember to rate, subscribe, and review. Let's do this. Hello, and welcome to Hearts and Stripes. I am your host, Bree Carroll, and I just want to thank you for joining this very powerful heart to heart that we are about to have. I will be chatting with none other than Rochelle Malone. She is an executive coach who is on a mission to empower women leaders to gracefully navigate change and to achieve greatness personally and professionally. Rochelle is a brilliant woman and someone who I truly admire. She is a Memphis native. She has a master's degree in psychology and is currently working on a PhD. She is the founder of Grace Solutions LLC, and you are going to want to strap in tight here because her story is one that will leave you in awe. For those who may be new here, I just want to let you know that Hearts and Stripes is all about strengthening military marriages so that you can thrive, live fulfilled, and celebrate authentically. So the key in all of this is healthy relationships. And first and foremost, you have to show up for yourself before you can show up for your marriage. And hearing Rochelle's story is truly going to drive that point home when it comes to having healthy, sustainable marriages, showing up for yourself. So, like I said, buckle up. We are going to chat with Rochelle, and I will not delay you any further. Let's listen to our interview with her. So yes, everyone, welcome to this Heart to Heart. I have a very special guest with me. This is my P2P sister, a woman whose story will impact your life in a tremendous way. Rochelle, thank you so much for being here and chatting on Hearts and Stripes podcast.
Glad to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to hang out with you once and also to meet your listeners. So I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So I have heard your story before, but our listeners are really in for what I would say a treat because it is a tremendous story. And I'm not going to delay too long because I want you to jump in. It is a story of faith. It is a story of overcoming. It is a story of favor that even through a situation that you maybe didn't think was something that you would be in, right? You still saw God's hand move even on that situation. So I'm not going to delay or give any more suspense. Rochelle, tell us about your marriage story and a little bit about your background and who you are.
Well, my name is Rochelle Malone. I am from Memphis, Tennessee. I'm a Southern Belle. And I grew up had a regular childhood, mother and father at home. I was the youngest of 5 children and just wanted to emulate my parents. You know I wanted to be married. I wanted to have a family. And I was very focused on being a wife at the right time, but I was very serious about schoolwork. I was in honors from elementary all the way to high school, even received a full academic scholarship. So academics were very important, but I also knew that I wanted to be married. And I think either at the age of 16, we had a youth pastor come to our church and he said, write down everything you want in your spouse. And so I did. And I had an affinity for Sidney Poitier. I don't know if you all know actor. I just thought he was just so elegant and such the epitome of a man. And so I wrote that name down. I wrote down different things that I wanted and I prayed over it. And I was just believing God for my spouse. Well, we fast forward, we're in college. I end up meeting my first boyfriend, and that became my college sweetheart. And eventually he became my husband. And we were very young, very excited about God. And what attracted me to him was his love for God. I had never seen a young person so serious about God, and I had never seen people really pray and answers the prayers were answered. You know, people prayed and it
Wow.
was something to do, and I know that they happened, but I never saw anybody just specifically pray what he wanted and it happened. So I was just intrigued with him because I love God as well. So I knew we started dating. We dated about a year and a half, and I ended up marrying him in my senior year. And he was known for being a great leader. One of the things that we wanted to do, we were very, I guess, mature for our ages. I was 21, he was 22. We decided we wanted to get married and start a ministry. And in our 40s, we were going to be, just settled down and enjoying our family, enjoying ministry. So we worked really hard. We started out with 6 people in ministry, and eventually it grew to over 1,000 people. We had some of the top leaders in our cities, professional athletes, judges, CEOs, doctors. We had a lot of the up and coming group. It was a lot of young people that were on fire for God, and so it was a group of leaders. And that was the great thing. We were developing leaders within the ministry. So I framed this to say that life was good, or I thought it was. I had we started the ministry in 1990. Well, we got married in June of 1990 and started the ministry August 1990. So we were the baby of the ministry and the baby in marriage. Shortly after,
Right.
my daughter, 4 beautiful young girls. And as you could say, life was good. There were things that I noticed in my marriage, but just like with anything else, you just kind of consider them as being, it's just a part of growth. Well, my world turned upside down in March 2007. What I thought I had was not what I had, and I liken it to say, it was an illusion of a dream. There was many people that wanted to emulate my marriage because my husband, he was a founding pastor. I was the co-pastor. We were living a good life. We were very blessed, and we seemed happy. I thought we were happy, but 2007, as more influence came, as more I guess opportunities came, I saw a shift with my husband at the time, and we started having relationship problems. And like I say, there were things that I noticed, there are things that I saw all along, but nobody really could give me any help regarding it. So it got to the point where it was really getting to a point where it was this is kind of serious, And I went and talked to some of the leaders within the churches, the wives, and
Mm-hmm.
I was advised, well, baby, you just got to pray. It's just you just got to pray. And I am a prayer. I understand prayer. But one thing that I learned through this incident is that you must have prayer and you must have knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And that the Bible says that you perish for lack of knowledge. And what was happening to me, I was perishing. And so what happened, I was, like I said, I met my husband, and we got married in my senior year. I went on to graduate from college. I went on to help found a ministry, successful ministry. I was leading workshops and leadership development. And here I was, a college graduate, being placed in a situation that I was baffled by. And I was baffled because one of the requirements, we got to the point, like I say, my marriage had gotten to a point where it had gotten pretty shaky because of some different things that were going on. And my husband was at the time beginning to start planting seeds that, don't you think you're a little stressed? Don't you think you're bipolar? Don't you think you're this? And I had never heard of these things before. So I had to go research bipolarism. And I'm like, I don't really think that's me, but okay. So anyway, an ultimatum was given to me. I was sent to a mental hospital and basically was told if I did not comply, that he was going to divorce me. And
Wow.
yeah, that was he said the Lord had told him that it was a make or break year for him, that things were going well for the ministry, but if I didn't align with him in regards to going to the mental hospital, that he was going to divorce me. Now, I worked in ministry, but also was a primary stay-at-home mom. I had a
Mm-hmm.
4-year-old, I had an 8-year-old, I had a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old girls. So,
Wow.
I'm like, who wouldn't do whatever they needed to do to keep their family together? So I'm like, okay, so I was originally told that I would go and get help for depression because they were saying I was depressed because of certain situations that were going on with my ex-husband, well, my husband at the time. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll go. And anybody who knows me knows I like my tea and I like my candles. So I brought my candles, I got my tea. I was like, well, I'll just take the information in the morning. That's what they told me. I'll get information
Right.
in the morning. I'll go back to my hotel or whatever and read over it. And, also I always, I love learning. So I would say that I was going to get the information to share with other women because the depression is something that's common that people deal with. So I'm like, let me
Right.
get the information on it. So fast forward, we get to the center. It's a behavioral center. Now, mind you, I wasn't necessarily. I was told that I needed to get help. I said, let me backtrack. Said he told me that I needed to get help. So I knew that I needed to get counseling, but I didn't know that the kind of help that he was implying was more than
Mm.
I anticipated.
Right. So you were kind of blindsided, if you will, on the different types of help. You had one thing in mind and he maybe had something else completely different in mind.
Yes, I thought I was going to go, see a therapist, go discuss depression. Okay, fine, we'll find out about it, we'll talk about it. But I never thought it was going to be, put it like this, I saw behavioral health center, and that's how I was just naive. I had no reason to deal with that area or that field of discipline. So I didn't know. So we were walking through, it was he, his secretary, and another young lady that went with us. And I asked the lady, I said, so what do you all do here? This is a behavioral center. So what kind of hospital is this? And she gave me the strangest look like this. Something is really wrong with this girl. Because, like I'm asking her, like, what is this for? So she just casually said, oh, it's for people with drug addictions and da 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 da. And I'm like, okay. I'm still like, okay, well, all right. Well, I guess that's what they do. So we got there. I began to share my story. And my ex-husband did not like the story that I was sharing.
Mm.
I kept interjecting. So the intake person took me to another room. And of course, that made him a little nervous because he could no longer control what was being said. Well, like I say, I did not realize the danger that I was in. I stepped away for a moment and I came back and my ex-husband was talking to another lady. I didn't know at the time who that was. That was the head psychiatrist. And so what I was originally told that I was supposed to stay for 3 days, I was now being admitted to a women's psych ward. And
Wow.
I was totally, totally just dumbfounded. But like again, I had to go through with it because this is what I have to do for my family. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
you were
okay,
trying to save your marriage. You were
exactly.
trying to save your family. You were thinking about your girls and in being compliant and following what was recommended to you.
Yes.
That's, you thought you were doing this for your family. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had no clue what I was agreeing to because I
Mm.
had no idea what that meant. There are three levels within at the time that I was told there's three levels in the behavior health center. You have the outtake where I thought I was going originally, where you go get help, see counselors, you are able to go home, you're free. Then there's a second level where there's male and female psych wards, and that's where you're pretty much in lockdown. You're given meds. You are stripped to pretty much of shoestrings. You can't wear shoestrings. You can't have Sharpies. You can't have anything with sharp. So it's pretty much you're monitored 24 hours a day. Your every step, every every day of your hour is monitored, and you are on a clockwork of meds. The third level is where you see the individuals that you see on the street that you're deemed mentally challenged, and usually in straitjackets. That's the third level. Well, when I went through, when they took took everything and they were walking me through, like I say, I'm still in a state of shock. I'm like, well, what's really going on? This is really not what I had anticipated. When I walked through the door, as soon as I walked through the door, they handed me meds. And I know it had to be God because initially I was going to be like, why are you giving me meds? What do I need this for? I don't need this. But
Right.
I couldn't even say anything. It was just like, okay, I was still in that state of shock. And so I took the medication. I was strip searched, brought back into the area. And I later
Wow.
come to find out by my psychiatrist that had I not taken those meds, and the reason why they gave me, and it was a very heavy dose of meds. The reason why she gave it to me is because she said I cannot have I don't want to put a pastor's wife on the third level in the most extreme level of the psych ward. Let's give her the highest dose of medication and put her in the second level and see how she does. And so,
Wow. Hold on. Let's pause for a second, Rochelle. You're saying that you thought you were just going to be an outpatient, talk to a counselor, but it sounds like you were being sent to the highest level of a psych ward.
yes, yes. Had it not been for the mercy of the psychiatrist, I would have been on the highest level. And I know because I spoke with her
Wow.
personally afterwards. I could say after all of the everything kind of was uncovered. But yes, and that's
Wow.
why I'm so, it's like I didn't fight. Had I resisted at all, it would have they were given instructions, take her to the third floor. And I had no clue. So, long story short, I stayed. Medication was very strong. I ended up fainting because I don't smoke or drink. My system was pure, and it was nothing but the grace of God. I ended up befriending a psychiatrist, a pharmacist while I was there. Like I say, it's a really strange story, but it was a God story. And she shared with me. She said it was nobody but God, Rochelle, that you're not in a coma. She said for you to have a pure system and to be given the amounts of medication. I can't think of the milligrams now, but the level of medication that I was given, she said typically people go into shock. And so
Wow.
I didn't go into shock, but I fainted. But anyway, I ended up staying 28 days in a mental hospital. And while I was there, it was so crazy. People that were in the hospital, because little did I know, there's some people that
Mm-hmm.
do take themselves into the hospital every 6 months or so because life just gets too much for them and they just need a break. And so the regulars were like, why are you here again? And I said, well, I thought I was there for depression. So
Wow.
they were like, okay. And they're just looking at me. Even some of the nurses or the people there, the people that were in leadership will pull me aside and say, now, why are you here? And I tell them depression. And they're like, oh, okay. And everything came to a head. Well, yeah, the third, I was there 28 days. The second week that I was there, um, I come to find out, I finally spoke up. I never really spoke in any of the intake, any of the sessions. And I began to share a little bit. And the lady that was facilitating the group, she said, you're a subjugated woman. And I said, a subjugated woman? She said, you're a batter. And I said, but he never put his hands on me. He never hit me. She said, no, it's not about him hitting you. He has mind control over you.
Wow.
Really, it's like, but I'm the Southern Belle. I'm the pastor's wife.
Mm.
I'm the submissive wife. I'm just doing what I was taught or what I thought
Doing
I was
what you
supposed to
believed
do
was right.
is
Yeah.
right to do. So I ended up, I'm trying to condense it because it's a really crazy story. I ended up meeting with the lady that said that to me, pulled me aside, and she just began to ask me questions. She's like, "You need to meet this other therapist that would happen to be there," but she wasn't physically there. So, some kind of way that next week I ended up being in this therapist session, and we were talking, and little did, and I didn't share this before, nobody knew where I was, and nobody in my family knew where I was. Nobody in the church knew where I was. The only people that knew where I was my husband, his secretary, the board member, and my husband's mother. Those were the only people that knew where I was. Now, imagine being away from your congregation 3 weeks and nobody can tell you where they are. Imagine me being away
Wow.
from my children and they don't know where I am. So when I told the therapist that my family didn't know about it, she's like, "You're not leaving this session until you go and call your mother." And I was like, she was adamant. She's like, "You don't realize you're in trouble. You need to call your mother. You need to call somebody and let somebody know where you are." So I called my mother. That was actually, I believe they had to be, that was Easter Sunday. And so I called my mother, and she was all excited to hear me. She says, "I've been trying to get in touch with you, and I couldn't get in touch with you. I'm so glad to hear from you." And long story short, she had been trying to get in touch with me because of the backdrop. My father had been diagnosed with cancer. And
Wow,
so he,
Rochelle. Wow.
so he was
Wow.
in I think stage 3, stage 4. They didn't really have much chance for him to live. So she had been wanting to get in touch with me to let me know what was going on with my father. So I shared that with her. She shared that with me. We're both kind of in shock. And I was like, "Well, don't tell anybody," because that's just how I was. I was trained, being married to my ex-husband, to be secretive or to be protect what's home. You don't share what's going on in your house. And I had another a minister say something. He said there's a difference between hiding and covering.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Bible, when Moses got drunk, his sons covered him because he was a man of order and of honor, and they didn't want him to be exposed, but they knew that he was a good man. But when you hide things, you know that something's not right, but you hide it.
Right.
That's a totally different thing. So I was hiding, and I didn't know that I was hiding. But anyway, my mother ended up sharing the story with my sister. That was on a Sunday. My sister lives in California. Monday morning, she was in Atlanta where I was. And so after that encounter on Sunday, the same therapist that had reached out to me, she's like, you don't understand, you're in trouble. She said, I almost lost my job over you. And I was like, really? What happened? She said, your psychiatrist, because my ex-husband that was the lady he had talked to out in the hall. He had shared so many different scenarios and so many different things about me and had painted this picture that I was trying to destroy the church, that I was such um, a cut up and such a distraction in the church that I needed to be put away. So she had a very negative perspective of me, and she was kind of rough and harsh with me when she dealt with me. But this other lady had been observing me and watching me. And of course, I didn't know she was watching me. She said, something's not right about it. And so she's like, she stepped in and started looking and investigating a little bit more about my case. So she called me. Well, she gave me her number after the session. Now, mind you, I'm in a mental hospital. A therapist does not give you her personal number and take interest in you unless there's something really serious. So she gave me her number and she asked me to call her. I called her and she asked me to take a cab to her house. And that just seemed like surreal, so surreal to me. It was just like, man, this stuff is like something out of the movies. So I went over to her home and she had pulled my records and she let me read what was in my medical records. And all I could do was cry. I could not believe that my pastor, that my
Yeah.
husband
Yeah.
betrayed me in such a way. But he said that I was um, bipolar, suicidal, homicidal, schizophrenic, and I think that's about it. And I think that's about enough. And so,
Yeah, that's more than enough. Rochelle, I'm gonna let's unpack some of that. So
mhm,
you are basically sharing that your husband at the time intentionally had you admitted to a mental hospital, and and no one knew, not your family.
no,
He isolated you in such a way to where your children didn't know where you were, your congregation, your family did not know where you were. Where was he in all of this? Did he come and check in on
he
you?
came once.
Okay.
He came once a week. I think he came like on Mondays, and then he would leave on Tuesdays. And um, during that, and it was just basically, I guess, just checking on me, just making. I can't. I guess he was making sure I was okay, but
Making
I don't know
sure
how.
his
How does
plan was
it?
still
Yeah.
going according. So when he came, did you ever think like, yep, it's my time to go now? Like, because you thought you were going to be there for 3 days.
Well, let me tell you how this is just how it became. And I don't know if it was just the meds as well, but after 3 days, I had enough cognition to know something wasn't right, but I didn't know quite what wasn't right. And
Mm-hmm.
the only thing that kept me was my mantra was, "This is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it." Every
Wow.
morning I got up and I just said, "Lord, I don't understand what's going on, but I'm gonna be rejoiced that you've given me my life." And like I say, that's a backdrop because there were so many other things that were going on at that time within mental hospitals when I was in that situation. But he would come and check on me, but he was very cold and very distant. And I remember prior to the last time that he came to see me, and this is when the hospital began to start saying, something's not right about this. Something. Even the psychiatrist was like, something's not right about this because typically we don't have to chase a person down to come and get you. He wouldn't come and get me. That's the reason why I ended up having to stay. And he kept calling the hospital and asking them to run tests on me. Just different types of tests. Run this test, run this test. So he was well studied in what he was trying to set me up for. Well, I think it had to be around after the, no, yeah, it had to be. It was around the time of the, everything just happened. God is so good. Let me go back to when I went to the therapist's house and she showed me the medical records. And nobody but God could do that for her, do that, cause her to do that. And I remember her bringing me back to the hospital. And I was just, shaking up so many range of emotions like, this is my husband, this is the father of my children, this is my pastor. I just felt, I just was just totally outdone that he would lie on me like that. And he knew me. And just some of the things that he shared were like, personal things, like I have a cut on my wrist. No one sees it. I got that when I was a little girl when I was 5, and he claimed that I did that as an attempt, a suicide attempt to try to cut my wrist. So it was just
Wow.
very personal things, and I felt very violated, very just thrown under the bus. So when that Monday came, trying to see, was it Monday or Tuesday? Whenever he came, this was the worst he had ever acted towards me. And he was telling me that I couldn't, as I was getting closer to getting ready to come home, I still had to be released to someone. If you're admitted into a mental hospital, you have to be released to someone. And he knew that my time was getting close. I guess he asked enough tests or whatever and stuff, and they couldn't do it. They weren't going to do anymore. And so he told me that I could not come back to Memphis. Because during that time, I don't know, that was a very high profile case of a pastor's wife whose husband had abused her, and was, I guess, sexually abusing her and just emotionally abusing her. And she snapped. She shot him and killed him. And so he gave me that rationale. He said, because the church was such a high stress, high environment, high stress environment, that I couldn't come back to Memphis because he was afraid that I would snap, that I would hurt it, that I would hurt someone. And
Wow.
so, and I
Wow.
was like, he handled all the finances. And so I'm like, okay, all right, well, this is what you say. I'm still in that mode of just, him leading. And I'm like, okay, this doesn't seem right, but I don't have a choice at this point. So he got me an apartment, he got me a car. All of that was had to be on a Tuesday. And like I said, my sister was already there.
So your
And
sister is who you were released to then?
right. My sister came because at that time my therapist got involved and was talking to my sister because she realized I was in trouble. People get lost in the system, and that's a reality. One of the things that I've learned in my research is that men of prominence, men of power, even back in the 1800s, when they wanted to get rid of their wife without an excuse, and they didn't want to divorce her, they put her in a mental hospital. Because when you go in a mental hospital, you lose all of your rights. And I soon found that out as I got out and was trying to do different things. Because you're deemed mentally incompetent, and unless otherwise you can prove it. So, well, that last week that he was there, like I shared with you, I was told to that I had to go to the mental hospital or I had to go away and get help, is the way it was put. Uh, Otherwise, I would be divorced. Well, the last week that he came, he took me to Starbucks and he began to share and talk to me and say, hey, I think I want a no contest divorce. You talk about,
Wow. You
uh,
endured
yes,
all of those days to
yes,
save your
yes,
family and your
yes,
marriage, and
yes,
still,
yes.
wow.
And this was the twist. A no contest divorce. Um, and I didn't even know what a no contest divorce was because I didn't know about divorce. Like I say, I was a church girl. I was the nerd. I was just focused on doing good. I didn't believe and know that people could be evil. So I was really naive to being evil, and it's just hard for me to even think of myself back that I was that naive, but I was. I was very trusting. And so he shared with me about a no contest divorce. And at that time, I had my sister and my therapist. I hadn't told them yet because he was just telling me about it. And I was just like, this doesn't seem right. And so I didn't say anything really about it. And he was like, well, then he started twisting it. Well, you don't want anybody to find out you were in the mental hospital, do you? So the thing that
Mm-hmm.
he was setting me up to do was now going to be the skeleton in the closet. It was now going to be the pawn in which he controlled me. Well, if you don't want anybody to know about this, you need to do this or you need to do this. So it became
Another level of
yes,
manipulation.
manipulation.
Yes.
Yes. So devastated, devastated. And,
Mm.
I remember, and I'll never forget these words that he spoke to me. And because, like I said, we worked together in ministry. And I said, well, how are you going to get rid of me? I said, I'm the mother of your children. I said, I'm a viable part of the ministry. How can you just tell me you want to divorce me and just walk away? And they used to call me Lady Rochelle. And he said, Lady Rochelle was just an image. Images can be made and remade.
Ooh, wow. If
So
that wasn't telling.
I
Wow.
I will never ever in life forget being told that because I never in life felt that low. All that I had done, all that I had sacrificed, all of that I thought the illusion of the dream that I thought that I had. I was just an illusion. I was just
Wow.
an image that could be replaced and they can be made and remade. And so that was that was my
That's a lot. Yeah, Rochelle. And let me just share with you the reason why I wanted to share your story on Hearts and Stripes podcast is because we're talking to military couples. Typically, I'm talking to my military spouses out there.
mhm,
And when I heard your story for the first time, it hurt so deeply because the isolation, the manipulation, the um, just trying to hide versus cover. I saw so many of these different elements could be played out very easily in
mhm,
this military lifestyle. We move so often. Some people move every 2 years, every 3 years, and they're leaving their families behind, their immediate families, and they are relying on their spouse.
mhm,
Oftentimes, the active duty member who does have the control in certain situations of the money, similar to your situation, they are given information, and it has to be any information for the spouse typically comes from the active duty spouse. So they have the opportunity to change some of the information or manipulate it in a way that best suits them. So I feel like your story is just, it's so impactful, and it really was eye opening to me because and I know you're gonna get to this, but these are the signs of a narcissist.
yes.
Your previous husband, your um wow, and you didn't know, you had no idea. And I mean, we heard your bio. You are an educated woman. You are always high achieving, walked in grace, was of faith, was a leader in the church, and you were told and really manipulated into going into a mental institution. And it is mind blowing how you were motivated to do the right thing for your family, and someone would take advantage of you in that way. And for anyone who is listening, if any part of this story resonates with you, if you feel like you are in a position of not being covered but you're being
Mhm.
hidden, or some things are being hidden, I hope that this is confirmation that this is not just a movie, that this really happens to people. And Rochelle, I just thank you so much for being transparent about that story. Um, but I want to get to the good stuff, and the God stuff, which you did touch on. There was favor on you throughout this
Yeah.
whole story. And so tell me about your the counselor that was working with you, your family, and then kind of what came next for you.
Okay. Truly, God's hand was in it because I really did not know the level of danger that I was in while I was there in the hospital. As more, I guess, word got out about something wasn't right about my situation, I had several of the therapists pull me aside and tell me, "Hey, you're in trouble." And I'm thinking, no, I'm not in trouble. I'm fine. My husband loves me. I was still not taking in. This is before he asked for the divorce now. I just felt like he was going through something. We were going through a rough patch, but they were going to get me attorney's numbers, and they were like, no, you really need to get help. And it was the therapist, again, like she told me, I asked her, I said, why are you doing this for me? And she said, because God wants you to know how much he loves you. And that to me just brought me to tears, because I didn't know the danger that I was in, but God was still protecting me. He sent people around me to fight for
Wow.
me that I
Yeah.
didn't even know. And she went on to tell me, this lady is originally from London, and she never gets assignments in Atlanta. She was supposed to be in New York. And she said, now I know why I'm in Atlanta. I'm here for you. And once she
Mm.
found out that was her assignment to help me, when I tell you, she acted like she was my auntie.
Right.
She protected me. She checked on me every day. She made sure things were well, even checking up with the psychiatrist and making sure the psychiatrist was well, because she really realized I didn't know what was going on. And so I actually, as I not like I say, there's prayer and knowledge. I didn't know that I was dealing with a narcissist. I didn't know that I was being gaslighted. Those were terms that I knew nothing about. I didn't know that I was codependent. And so, me being a codependent made it, I was easy prey for a narcissist and a person that gaslights. And what is a narcissist? A narcissist is a person that has no regard for others. They are the center of attention. It's nothing wrong with having self-love, but when you have self-love to the detriment of others, that's where you become a narcissist. And it was just a lot of characteristics that I didn't know. I just coupled it as being, he's just a very dominant personality, and I just have to cater to him. And just, I was told a lot of erroneous things. Well, this is just how black men are. And I'm thinking, well, that's not how my father was. But when you're in that situation, you become blinded. And really, to be honest, I really, I think I was just stripped of my emotions because I had been so broken. And that achiever part of me wanted to succeed at all costs. And I learned a lot through this lesson. And I said I wanted to be an advocate. It's not, I haven't really shared my story a lot. It's been over 13 years that this happened, but I had to get on the other side of it to be able to understand it, to process it, to be able to share with others, because
Absolutely.
nobody was there for me. I looked for others. I didn't even think to go to a mental hospital or mental health for this, because I was a church girl. We pray about it. We
Right.
go to Jesus about it. And like I say, I still believe in prayer, but I believe you need to get knowledge and get an understanding with what you're going through. And that way you can better assess and use prayer and faith to navigate out of situations that are not right. But I was dealing with a narcissist, and I was dealing with codependency. And codependency is that insatiable desire to please, to please at all costs. You're afraid, you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. You don't want to have anybody think that you're this, or think in a negative light of you, because you're so, wanting to people please. And that's what I was. I was the baby, the one that made everybody happy, that pleased everybody. And I carried that role right into ministry. I pleased everybody, and put everybody on the forefront. And I enjoy doing it. That was the thing about it. But I didn't know how to set boundaries with people. And the gaslighting aspect it's a psychological mind game. It's just like with me. I asked myself a question: how can a college educated leader, woman that looks like she's woke, as the world would say, end up in a mental hospital? It was
Right.
because I allowed my ex-husband to use manipulation. And I don't want to throw him under the bus. I don't know what his reasons are for doing what he did, but he did.
Mm-hmm.
But it's psychological manipulation. And what that does is like being told, don't you think you're bipolar? Don't you, you're a little depressed. Well, you've been in a mental hospital. Yeah, I was in a mental hospital, but the people there were telling me something wasn't right. I wasn't supposed to be there. So all along, it was these subliminal messages to try to tell me something about me that wasn't true, to get me to stop trusting myself and begin to look to that person as a mirror, or a compass to tell me who I am. That's what gaslighting does.
Mm.
It keeps you unsettled. It's like you know, like it, I don't know, you come home every day, you put your keys a certain place. Well, the spouse, if he's being manipulative, he starts taking your keys. You put them there, but he takes them and moves them away. And then you looking for them, can't find them, and you come back in the morning, they're there. And you're like, wait a minute, I know these were not here, but then they're so subtle that you don't really pay attention to it because you're always kind of on the go. You're so busy. You're not really in tune to what's going on. And those
Wow.
were the things that got me. We were busy, busy, busy all along. But I came to the understanding about what gaslighting was, and I can go on to this when I share with you about being basically flat emotionally. When Oprah first came out with her books, she would always have self evaluations in her books. And I remember trying to do them, and I could never do them because I could never be honest with myself. And that should have been a sign there. But
Wow.
I didn't pause. I was so busy. You can be so busy that you don't take time to notice you. You're so busy taking care of the kids, so busy taking care of the husband, taking care of work, taking care of family, that you just totally just abandon yourself. And that's what
Right.
happened. And so, I still got Oprah's magazines. I just couldn't do the survey part. But
Right.
I just couldn't do that part. But she used to do a highlight on books. And she was highlighting this book on gaslighting. I think the author's name, her name is Robin Stein, I believe, Stein, but it's gaslighting. And I started reading just excerpts of the book, and I found myself in it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm being gaslighted. I could never explain it to anybody because no one would ever really believe me. And what some of the things, it wasn't just the mental hospital thing, but it was so many other areas and things that he was doing to make me unsure of myself, to make me uncertain of myself. Well, I got the help that I needed. I got out. My sister got me out, and it's been a long journey. Of one, the realization of it. I think it's the devastation that I don't think anybody could envision themselves being in a situation. And one of the things that a lot of times kind of kicking yourself, like, how could I let this happen to myself? How could I let this happen? But research has shown that very successful women are oftentimes the ones that suffer the greatest abuse because it's a shame. You don't want anybody to know, here you are, this high-powered woman, this woman out here going and doing what needs to be done out in the world, but at home you have no control in your household, and you have no say so in your household, and oftentimes it goes unreported, and or it's masked until something really horrific happens, and the stats come out. But that's one of the things, especially with gaslighting, because one, that's dealing with your psyche, that's dealing with your competence, that's dealing with your ability to process, and you're like, well, I'm sharp on my job, I'm sharp here, so I don't understand this, but I'm not going to give too much attention to it. And that's what it is. It's subtle. You don't give too much attention to it. But I went on to really do a lot of soul searching, and just rebuilding of my life. It was a lot that went on after I got out. It wasn't an easy road at all. As I shared with you, that when you are placed into a mental hospital, you lose everything. And I did. I lost everything, my home, my children, everything, under false allegations. I had to prove that there was nothing wrong with me. And it was just a difficult process, but I'm very grateful that God it brought me through.
Yeah.
I had a great resolve in Him, and God is so good. When I say about the therapist that took me under her wings and looked out for me, when my husband told me that I had no that I couldn't come back to Memphis, and I was able to get out of the lease for the apartment, and I was basically nomadic for about a month, flying between Atlanta and California, trying to figure out what was I going to do, because immediately after I got out of the mental hospital, I was advised to go see my children so that I wouldn't be charged with abandonment, even though I was in the mental hospital. It was just so many things that I had to play against. So I went to go see my children. And once I went to go see my children, I was later told that all the locks on my house were changed. So I never was able to go back to my home after that. So I was basically homeless. Um,
Wow.
so it was a lot to contend with, to process, to wrap your head around that this is the person that you loved on so many different levels. For whatever reason, I guess greed, or whatever the reason was for it, to experience that. But then I realized that narcissism is a mental health condition. And that's when I
Mm-hmm.
had to just really, and it took me a while because I couldn't understand. I try to rationalize and try to see, why does this a person, why can't I just, meet in the middle ground? And that's one of the key things too when you're dealing with a narcissist. There is no middle ground. It's either their way or no way. And when you're dealing with a person like that, it's not about a personality preference. That's a personality disorder. And had I known about it, I can say I feel like there could have been some maybe some interventions, but I didn't even know what to say or know what to
Right.
share because I was just being told, well, that's just a dominant personality. And narcissism can go both ways, male and female, but the best way I can say is this. I did know throughout my marriage that I felt like, as the older person say, it's like getting in the shower with your socks on. If you're in a rush, you get in the shower with your socks on.
Yeah.
You're like, something's wrong, but you don't quite know. You're like, oh man, I got my socks on, and that's kind of how how it was with me and my marriage. It's like I was married with my socks in the shower with my socks on. Something just wasn't right, but I couldn't put my finger on it because just as it was crazy when it got to the end, he was a great guy, very charismatic,
Mm.
very romantic, very, a good provider for the kids, a good provider for me. So it was like, how do you decipher that? It wasn't like he was bad all the time. And so that's what it was, a fine line. That's what my therapist says, a fine line between love and hate. You better educate yourself. You need to find out what you're dealing with. If something just doesn't seem right, pray about it, get help about it, start asking questions about it, seeking help about it, because you're your only advocate. And like in my situation, thank God, I didn't even know to advocate for myself, but others knew and saw my ignorance. They saw my um, me being so naive and so green that they stepped in to help me. And it's been a process. It's been a journey, but I made it over. And I refuse to be a victim. And that's why it took me a while, because sometimes when people go through situations, they're still bleeding. And I didn't want to bleed on anyone else as I was sharing my story. I don't hate my ex-husband. I dislike what he did. But if a person is not well, a person is just not well. And that's just, those are characteristics and attributes of a person that does not functioning well. And
Wow,
so,
Rochelle, that's a big statement to make, and it just shows your character and your personal faith walk, that you are not that you are not that you understand what the condition of your ex-husband is. You are not pleased with how the situation happened, but you are able to forgive and move past that. That is such a really big statement. And I just want to foot stomp also your message of prayer and knowledge, how important that is to go hand to hand. I love how you say that you are your own and your only advocate. You have to educate yourself, and that's a message that I really want to drive home for our listeners, particularly when we talk about self-care, when we talk about continue to build yourself, so that you can show up whole for your marriage. You got to show up whole for yourself first.
yes, yes.
And then that way you will be able to discern some things in your marriage. Like you said, if you're in the shower with your socks on, you're able to better pinpoint because you know where you stand. And yeah, I think that is such a needed message to hear. And I'm so grateful for you sharing that. I do want to talk about your newest venture, though. You are a phenomenal woman. You have, like I said, very educated. You have such a amazing story, and you've seen
Thank you.
a lot of different things from a psychological level. You were a leader, still are a leader on so many different levels, and you are now coaching and consulting. You have a practice. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, what I experienced was definitely life changing for me. But as I shared with you, we had a congregation pretty fairly large congregation, and we were also on television as well. So not even mentioning the people that came to our church, but even the people that we influenced. And it reverberated throughout the community. There were a lot of people, as a result of what happened to us, their marriages broke down. They lost faith in God. And as a leader, if you have any kind of compassion for the people, you want to figure out how to help the bleeding, how to help the hurt. And so it's like there are certain things I could not control about my life, but there are certain things I could control about my life. So I went back to school and I got my master's in industrial organizational psychology. And that is the ability to understand what a healthy organization looks like. What constitutes good leadership, and making sure your employees are taken care of. Because what happened with our organization, it started with leadership, but then it also just started breaking down, and the structure wasn't as secure as it should have been. And so you learn from that. And that's one of the things that I did. I went back and got my master's, and currently I'm working on my doctorate in strategic leadership in business and leadership, because I wanted to know, just uproot some thinking or thoughts that I had about leadership, to understand what is true leadership. And one of the areas that I deal with is authentic leadership. I also went back and I've gotten certified as an executive coach. And that, for me, that was really life-changing for me, because the process of going through coaching, you have to be coached. And I benefited so greatly because, you do have a range of emotions. 28 days, everything changed. My marriage changed. I lost my children. I lost my professional standing. I lost my home. I lost my life. So, any one of those things at one time is enough to, send you spiraling down. But for all of them to happen all at once. And so here I am, I have to figure out, okay, how am I going to do life? What does my new normal look like? Because it won't be normal, not like it was before. So
Right.
my foundation is in positive psychology, and it used to be called the science of being happy, because everybody wants to be happy. But now it's called the science of flourishing. What makes you flourish in life? What makes you thrive in life? What makes, I've come to find out that adversity comes to everybody. No one escapes it. Some of us have greater stories than others, but all of us have adversity in our life. But it's how we navigate those challenges. And that's what the basis of my coaching practice is that I help leaders, I help women gracefully transform the pain of change into personal development and growth. Because wherever you stop growing personally, that's where your business is going to stop. That's where you're going to be stuck. And
That's
I
good.
realized that, I stopped growing when when I could no longer do, when I couldn't do an Oprah magazine. That should have been a red flag right there. You don't know yourself. You're not checking in with yourself. You're checking on everybody else, but who checks on you? Who checks and see, am I happy? Am I content with my life? Is my life full of meaning? Those are questions only you can ask. And I couldn't ask myself those questions. I didn't give myself permission to ask those questions. I began to say this to myself. Um, I'll be happy. I'll have joy on earth, but I'll be happy in heaven. Because joy is not based on your situations. It's based on the
Right.
I feel like
Wow.
it's continual confidence in the ability of God to be who he is. That's what joy is. Confidence in the ability that God is God. But I said, this side of life, I want joy and happiness. I want my inner joy to be full, and I want to be able to look out and see and be happy about my surroundings and happy about what's
Right.
going on.
That's
And
good.
so that's really kind of where I am. As leaders, we can become professional leaders, professional moms, professional wives, but not be who we were created to be, because we're like Stepford wives. We're just going through the motion. We've lost our emotion. We've lost who we are. And that's my goal, is to help individuals get back in tune with who they are, because until you are who you were created to be, the world misses out on the mark that you have, that only you can give and only you can share. And so I don't want, there are too many treasures that are being hidden because they don't know who they are, or they don't value themselves. And I didn't have that. So I want to be that for others, and just be that psychologically safe place where you can come and share and talk. And that's what coaching does. Oftentimes we get the wrong idea of what coaching is. Coaching is not about telling somebody what to do, but coaching is about asking the right questions and allowing that person to really self-reflect and think about it. You know what it's like when you're watching something or you see something and it's like, that aha moment comes. It's like,
Yes.
oh, man, I never thought
Yes.
about it like that. That's what coaching is. Coaching allows
Mm-hmm.
you to sit back and be reflective in your thoughts, in your mind, in your world, without being mom, without being wife, without being sister, without being friend. But it's a place that you come and you focus in on the best version of you. And so to me, that's so fulfilling, to be able to offer that. Because like I say, if I had that knowledge, um, things probably would have been different. Now, I do say this as well. Coaching springs you forward. Counseling and therapists help you work backwards.
Yes.
Now,
Thank you for clarifying.
yes,
Yes.
because sometimes people think they come to a coach and they want to go over what happened in their childhood, and that's not what a coach does.
Mm-hmm.
Coaching helps you figure out, okay, we're dealing with a bit of change here. How are we going to navigate this? Do we want this change to make me bitter, or we want this change to make me better? And I
Right.
and I would say better is always the best choice. But if you notice, some attributes or things that are not right, speak up. Don't be afraid to go and talk to a therapist and say, I've been feeling this way or I'm thinking this way. There's nothing wrong with getting a third party opinion about things that's trusted. And that's why I say therapist, because therapist, your business is safe. You have, and with me, I have uh, confidentiality contracts with all of my clients, because I want you to realize and know that whatever is shared within those confines, unless you're out to kill somebody or out to harm yourself, I have to legally, say those things. But other than that, I do want my clients to know that they have a safe place where they can grow and explore and talk. So that's what I'm doing now. I can't change what happened, and I remember so many times, crying to my sister or crying to my therapist, just going through the process of it. And they would always say, it's not about you, it's about somebody else. So now I
Yes.
can finally say, it's about you. I went through what I went through for you. I don't know who you are, but I just want you to know I went through much, much, much for you to be free and to be happy. And I'm so grateful that I stayed in the fight so that you can get knowledge and get insight and get understanding and know that you are not crazy, or that you're not alone, or what you're experiencing is so far-fetched. No, it's just that it's probably foreign to you and you probably never put a name to it. But get the help that you need. Reach out. There are people that are willing to help and to help you
And
all through this process.
reach out to Rochelle specifically. She has you've heard the story. She has given us some amazing advice, coupling prayer with knowledge, the advice to seek therapy if you need that look back to unpack what has happened in your past. And she, if you need someone to help you spring into your future, someone to encourage you to transform your mindset, to go after that new thing, please do reach out to her. Rochelle, please let people know how they can connect with you, whether that be on social media or email.
Well, actually, right now, email is one of the best ways to contact me. That's Rochelle, Rochelle, at gracesolutions.com. It's graced with a D, GRACED, gracesolutions.com. I am on Instagram, and it's under Grace Solutions, but I'm kind of old school. I'm kind of getting used to the social media. I do have my website in the workings. So I'll be as relevant as Bree. I'm trying, she's my cheerleader. I'm trying to come up to her level.
Yes, I am cheering you on from one coach to another. I
Thank you.
am so excited about your growth, so excited about what you are offering in this community for women leaders who just maybe your story maybe resonates with them. Maybe they are unsure. Maybe they are just looking for a phenomenal coach. Please go check out Rochelle. I can attest to just the grace that she moves with. You could hear it all through her story. And if you are a God girl, like I like to talk about on Hearts and Stripes, if you are a God girl, this is definitely somebody that you will want to link arms with to help walk you and guide you through your next steps of just thriving and flourishing in your life and in your business. So Rochelle, thank you so much for being a guest. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I do have one last question for us. It's all about our heart tracks. Is there a song that you would recommend for our heart tracks that maybe ties in your message or your story?
Yes, I am a hopeless musician. I don't play any instruments, but in my mind I do.
Yes, I love it.
But I've lately been listening to Gene Moore. He is a phenomenal singer, and not just a singer, he's an anointed singer. And the song that has resonated with me is Depending on You. And that's truly, I guess, my theme song. It has been, God, I've been depending on you. You know, I don't understand all that's happened. I don't understand all that's ahead of me. But as long as I know that I can depend on you, I'm going to be okay. So that's my song, and that I would share that with those that are listening for it to be a blessing to them. I pray that it will be for them as well. But that's Depending on You, Gene Moore.
That's our heart track. Thank you so much again, Rochelle. You've been such a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. You're such a gracious host. I appreciate the opportunity to spend this time with you and your guests.
Okay, everyone, you know what time it is. It is time to EYS. And wow, this episode was a deep one. I hope you guys took something away from this story. And really, one of the undertones of all of this is a combination of prayer and knowledge. So for your EYS, I want you to think about one area of your marriage that maybe needs to be addressed. It could be communication, sex, money, family, whatever it is that you might be thinking of that needs to be addressed in your marriage. And I want you to apply the concepts of prayer and knowledge. Prayer, whatever your faith system is, whether that be going into the word and getting scripture, meditating, finding some ways to ground yourself and clear your mind so that you can be guided to and attract the things that you need to answer this situation. And knowledge, maybe that's reaching out to a professional, a Google search, whatever you need to do. Couple these things together to change your situation. I hope that this is impactful to you. And by all means, if you find yourself in a similar situation that our guest was in, I would encourage you to reach out on your own behalf. Less EYS, less couple prayer and knowledge. And if you are in a situation that is dangerous to yourself, please reach out to a chaplain, a medical professional, or someone that you can trust to help you EYS. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to rate, subscribe, and review. This is Hearts and Stripes. We are the few, the proud, that aim high and are forged by love. Always ready, always there. We are Mill Marriage Strong.